All right, hey there, Sam here with you. We're midday on Tuesday, February 6th. And this is the coin that members voted on for a look here to get a technical update on. Now, this is a great coin to look at. So this is Cardano to Bitcoin, 88 Bitcoin. I've got the 4-hour here on Bittrex, and we've looked at this coin recently. We'll get a quick update here. So the first thing is to look at here. In the midst of the Bitcoin meltdown, I mean, this is holding rather nicely, as there are many alts holding nicely. So this is, as I was referencing in the prior video, it's a question of where you're moving your capital. Where think of it as value. Where is the value going? So remember, of course, if you're buying an alt, you're by definition you're shorting Bitcoin. So this is would appear to be a place that has proven to be a good place to store some value. So let's just do a quick count on it. Now, this is a fairly easy one. I'm kind of surprised it was chosen, but I just do what members vote on. So here we can look here. So if I go all the way back here, I'm just wicking off the absolute lowest low that I can find. All right. So here's the history on Bittrex. So your first thought might be to think, oh, well, that's the big move here, so that's got to be the third, and we're putting in the fourth. Well, not so fast. I would beg to differ with that. A couple of reasons for that. So first, the way I would count this is that if we start over here, that's why I do that little yellow dash, so I don't have to keep going over to the left. So this is what I see: extension in the fifth. All right, even though I know perfectly well that the oscillator is going to show that as a peak, I think what we have here is an extension in the fifth. Now, why do I say that? Well, so I'm just measuring it, and I'm just working off of the probabilities. So if I look here, and if I'm playing this as a 1-2, remember, right, when we went over here, if I do this, that looked like a monster move, right? That looked like whoa, look at that 3. At that time, that looked like a monster. So we measured it, and I've done this coin many times. So this won't be a big surprise here. So we're just going to take from our absolute low. So we're going to take the length of the 1, project it from the 2. Where's our highest probability zone? Between the 1618 and the 175 for a wave 3. So we get this nice pocket up here. You can see that's right where we go. We actually go through the 175 by just a hair, but pretty nice looking 3 right there. Okay, now then we get consolidation. So if I move this over, we get this triangle pattern, very common in the fourth. We get this congestion zone here, and we'd measure that. So we'd look, hey, okay, from the 2, if that's my 3, and I measure from the 2, well, that's shallow, 23.6. That's not uncommon for a fourth. The stronger the trend, to get that shallow of a 4 between the 38 and the 23, that's still very high percentage. That's over 50% of the time you'll see that. So the rip up here is just implied by the shallowness of the 4. So while it would have been easy to be down here waiting at the 38, you can't discount the 23.6. This is a high probability zone for the fourth. So even if you did miss it, there's plenty of opportunity, and there's opportunity right now. So if we move off of that, now we say, okay, well, we got this monster move, and we went, we're through the negative 618. So that's crypto, right? That's why we love crypto. That's why we trade crypto. That's the kind of move. You're buying here thinking you've got these algo targets, and look how far we go. It's the absolute extreme. That's what we love about crypto. But I would propose to you that what we have there is an extension in the fifth. And that's a completed 5-wave cycle, 5-wave structure. Okay, so we complete it, and again, just Elliott wave basics. What we trend in 5s, we correct in 3s. So we get a pretty nice 3-wave here that seems to have potentially put in a significant pivot here. So if we were again just eyeballing, keeping it simple, well, that sure looks like a potential A wave. There's my B, and then we come down here, and that looks like that's a strong contender as an ABC correcting this entire 5-wave structure. Well, so the first thing we're going to do is see if this is a technical pivot. So we're going to look here. We're going to just pull from the absolute low, and again, I don't need to go over here. I can just use the yellow dash because I know that's my low. So I can pull from that low up to my absolute high here. And where do we go? All right, so classic algo front run on the 618, which would imply that's a good pivot. So does that play? Well, you know, we got to dig in a little bit here because the potential is there. If so, keep in mind if that's a completed five-way structure and we're correcting it on the larger degree, that means that all we're doing is doing this. So this would be 1, and this is potentially 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's change that degree. We'll go up 1. We'll go up to minor. Excuse me. And we'll put that in blue. So potentially there, I've got that as a 1, 2. All right, well, we know that a 2 can go as deep as the 786, but considering the front run at the 618, that tells me first algos are in. And that's likely them buying there. As they started buying at the 50, they defend all the way to the 618, and thus the reaction. So we see here, first time, well, actually we went, so here we get the reaction, we go through it. So this is why I often caution you to buy in the first rip down. Even though there was a profitable trade there, it does not end up being the absolute low. So here's the 50, they push it through. Up reaction, all it does is create the B wave. So we know if we've got a 50, we're going to be running into resistance on the way back up. So if I pull from that A wave, and look here, where do we go? Excuse me. So here's the 50. We know a B wave can be anywhere from the 50 to the 786. Right? So here, so you don't be confused here. So that's the 23 from the other. Here's from, if I'm pulling from swing high to low, here in red here is my 50. Here's my 618 on the backside for the B wave, and down we go. Now here's the algo target down here. Below, they don't get the algo. They don't always get their target. So you have to defer to the larger trend. So you can say, well, they did the algos that sold here did not get their target. Don't I have to wait until they get there? Well, not necessarily. Where's the larger degree trend? Larger trend is up. So this takes precedent as the buy here at the 618. That reaction overrules this one. Even though, you know, this is a contender and we don't know that we don't go down there, that still wouldn't violate that count. You defer to the larger degree trend. So if we look at that and say, okay, well, that certainly plays structurally as a three-wave correction. Well, maybe we can dig in a little bit deeper here. So now that we have this identified as the 618, let me pull this off so I declutter the chart a little bit. So here now we have this, and we could roll over again. So let's look at it from this pivot and see, do we have anything here to be concerned about? Well, that's interesting. So here, swing high to this swing low. Right, here's the last algo sell. Well, here now we're back to the 50 again. Now we've got this cluster down here that we're getting a confluence zone of algo targets. So now you got to kind of wonder and say, well, wait a minute. Am I building a case for this to head to the 786? Well, you're kind of in no man's land out here. Here's the 786. Yeah, that could happen. But I defer to this longer trend here, to the larger degree, which would imply that the correction is over. Now, can I build any more evidence to suggest that this is my good pivot? Well, if I've got three pivots like I've got here, if I've got an A, B, and a C, well, that demands a pitchfork on it. So we look here. So I've got that's the shift pitchfork. So I can look at that and you can see it here. So we might if we put, so there's the shift. So if I put the original on it, right, see it's too steep. So I would go to the alternate. We look at the shift. Well, that's kind of interesting there. If I go to modified shift, again, rather steep. But if I go back to shift here, this seems like the good fit. Look at the reaction here. So here's the corner pocket trade, right? So we know a sell here has an 80% probability of going, and that wasn't quite a golden pocket, but we were in between the 50 and the 618. So the sell there per Andrew's median line, rule number one, that if we identify those three pivots and they hold, we have an 80% probability of making the median line, which happens to coincide with the 50. So now you look at that and you understand the algo pull even more, not to mention the Vegas wave sitting right there, right between the 144 and the 169. So we get the reaction. They don't get their target. We don't get up here towards the algo target up here, right? So that's our larger target per the swing low to high on the assumption that that's a completed five-wave structure. So from that 50, there's the algo target up here. It rolls over. Now we're still here, this same target, so this is the better buy because now you have pattern plus price plus fib pull plus algo. Now we have the pivot here at the intersection of the median line and the 50, but it rolls over again. Well, now I would look at this and go, is there anything else I could draw here? Maybe I need to draw another median line here. So I would look here and go, what do I get there? Well, that's kind of interesting. So I'm just pulling from the next pivot, from the next series of high to low to the next pivot before it heads down again. We go right to the lower parallel. So this is starting to build a case. So if I take this one off on the assumption that we're no longer operating from that because the reaction was here, we come down. So now I have a bit more confluence here to imply that's a good low. So I've got the front run on the 618 and I've got the lower parallel on the median line. Now I'm coming back, and what am I doing now? I'm sitting right on the median line. And in fact, I've had a reaction off the median line. So what could be happening here? Well, if we're going to work on the assumption that we've got a 1-2 is in, the ABC is complete with a technical pivot, everything we could hope for. And now we've got, so here we go to the upper parallel, reaction back to the median line. So this needs to get legs. So let's go down to the 1 hour and see if we can find a trade in here. So now we look here, we can see as we sit on the parallel. Well, so the first question is, could I have, if I went down to a 15-minute, could I find that as a 1-2? Could this be a 1-2? Let's of course, all we're going to do is measure it. So we grab from that low, and I pull here. What do? Right to the 50. So we know now that potentially we have a 1-2 here. We know the negative 100 will be very close to the 1618. So I'm going to measure that, thinking possibly I've got a 1, in goes a 2. Here's the 1618, right? So it's not right on top of it this time, but we get a little cluster up here. So could that be the 3? And now we're putting in ABC. Well, we've already overlapped the 1. So what does that mean? Now we've got a diagonal. Well, if we've got a diagonal, we measure from the low, from the start of the diagonal. We measure up, we look for a retracement from the high. So I've got to pull this up. Where do we go? Let me dial that in, make sure I'm right on it. So it looks like we've gone right to the golden pocket. So let me, as you can see, you got to get right on it when you change time frame. So we got to get right on that. Looks pretty good here. So we've had a wick through. It looks like the wick through went to tap the median line. So potentially here we have a diagonal, which would look like this. So we'd have a 1, 2, 3. Here goes the deep 4. Potentially now we go up for the 5. There's the algo target. See, let me take this off. So if that plays as a 3, and this is the deep 4 coming to, so we've got a golden pocket, we've got the median line, all giving us confidence in that as a technical pivot, as a potential low. Now, it doesn't guarantee that we're not going to roll over, but that's certainly, like, if you're looking for guarantees, you're in the wrong business. This could certainly roll over, but right now that looks like the likely target. Right? That's. Do I have anything here? You know, maybe you got a little divergence here. So here you were stronger here as we hit this. Now we bounce, so it's weakening. A little volume has come in here. I mean, we're above the 50 on the RSI. Again, I go to oscillators last, never first. So potentially though, this plays as a leading diagonal to get us into a 1 wave to get us out of this low. 1, 2, 3. It's not the prettiest I've ever seen, but it's certainly technical and it plays. So that plays as a 4. So could we get up here and get this 5th? Well, if we do, let's pull out a second. So if we do, what does that do for us? Right? Remember where we've been. Remember where the long target is. Okay, from this 618, here's our target up here. We got a long way to go if that's where we're headed. If this is a 1, 2. And we're working off this technical pivot, and we're just putting in the 1 wave here, or trying to put in the 1 wave, and we need this push up here to give us the 5 wave diagonal. If we get that, so you might look at that and say, you know, it's not. I don't like the structure, the 2 and the 4. It's too light. That's true. It's not ideal, but it's a contender. It could play. So if it's not to your liking, because granted, I can sit here and look at it and say, well, that's a very look at the length of time of the 2 relative to the 4. So it's not ideal, no doubt about it, and this could fail. Right, we may come down here, and this may end up being an ABC, and we've got to go down yet again. Remember, we're operating on the assumption that we've got a hard pivot here. If that fails and this comes back down, we take this out. Well, we still have the entire golden zone here. We have the lower parallel yet again, and we have the 786 below that is a contender still as a wave 2 low. So, right, again, that's all you get is probabilities. So is that a potential trade? You don't like that one? You want to give it a little more time to see how it plays? Well, if we get this up as the 5, let's say we go up just for the hypothetical. So we go up for the 5. Okay, so I'm going to take that off. If we go up, if this is our 4 and we get the 5th, well then then we'd be operating on the assumption that that 2 is in, and now we're just going to pull for the length of the entire thing. So let's get this hot. So if I work from this low, if this 5th, this right here, I'll just work from that 5. If that's my next, if that's my next target here, and I get that, and then I start to retrace, well, where's the next trade? Right. So I can take this off on the assumption that we have the pivot, that this is the 4, this goes up. So now we're looking for this. Then we'd be looking for a completed 5-wave diagonal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's change the degree. Go to white. Excuse me. We'll go to subminuet. Okay. So that's what you're looking for if we get the push up here. Again, it's not gorgeous. It's not the prettiest setup for a diagonal, but it's technical, so it's a contender. You don't like this? Wait and see. Wait and see. You want to be more conservative given the volatility in crypto right now? Well, that's not unreasonable to consider. I mean, there's a few different scenarios. You could make the case that you have a truncated 5th there. You could make that case that you just have a truncated 5th, and then the 4 was in here. And just down on a smaller time frame, you might have it. So how does that play? It's a contender. You got to consider it. So then we would be looking here for this is our 5th. Now we're right in the golden zone. All right. So then we'd be playing on this assumption that we have the 1 in. This is now a 2, not a 4. And actually, that's a real contender. So if you're buying there, then you've got a very low risk. So you could be a buyer there on that 618. If we got a little pullback here, let's assume we got a pullback to the 50. Now, there's your first target. The stop can be very tight, which I like. So I can get on just on the other side of the 65. So what I have there, first target, there's what do I got? 4.66 to 1. Here's the negative 618. 685 to 1. Here's the wave 3 target. We know it's going to be close to the negative 100. That's just a good place to eyeball for it. If I measure it and we say, oh my God, come here. If we measure it and say, okay, if that ends up, well, I would measure here because algos will use that. If I look at that and go, oh, okay, well here now I've got another confluence zone up here, where I've got the negative 100 and the 1618 as a contender for the 3rd. If what I've got here is a truncated 5th into a 1 wave. No way to know until we see is this low going to hold, and are we already looking at the 1 wave here with that shallow 5? It's possible. So what's the point of all of that? Well, I've got a very, very low risk trade here with a clear exit ramp. Get stopped out. Welcome to trading. Next trade. But it certainly is a contender if you want to try and work off of this pivot as the low. Maybe this is the 4. I actually think this as a truncated 5th looks better to me, because now if I open this up and I look at the length of that 4 to that 2, that plays better to me. This is just a choppy little 4. We don't get, given this is just a big wick. Here we go up for the 5, truncated 5th. We get the 1. Right now it's not, take note, now it's not a diagonal. Now we just have a motive wave. Now we've got this kind of sloppy fall off here, but we come down to this 2, we go right into the golden pocket. So now you're just waiting for the next little pullback. So get a little pullback here to the 50, stop under the 618. Nothing wrong with it. As good as any there. I mean, that's all you get. Probabilities. Low. What's the risk reward there? 9.3 to 1. Again, so what's the reason not to take that trade? Right? Fear? Really? What's the reason not to take it? Let's put a pitchfork on it. Why would you not take that trade? You're underwater. I don't know. Maybe you're looking for a place to park some value, some capital, because you're worried about Bitcoin taking another leg down. Now let's look at this. Does that line up as a contender with the median line? 80%. If this holds, 80% odds of getting there. 80%. So you're looking at a 9.38 to 1 with 80% odds if that holds. Now, we could hit it here. We could just go straight up and hit it here. We may not get this high, but certainly is a contender because we have this time factor. If we're going to stay with the original, these are 3 good pivots. At some point here, we have 80% odds of hitting that median line. When do we hit it? Well, it remains to be seen. But that's certainly a contender. Again, why would you not take that trade? You got a better one? You got a better setup? You don't like the truncated fifth? Oh, it looks to me like you're forcing a little bit. So be it. Okay. What else you got? Again, this is as good as any trade. What more are you going to find? You don't get any better odds than that. If you got a better trade than that with better odds, send it to me because I'll take it. All right, guys, I'll wrap it there.